This is the Best of the Left commentary for episode number 533, posted on September 29th, 2011. To get this and the entire show in context, please visit bestoftheleft.com. So this story takes place a few weeks ago on a day when I went for a drive, which is not a normal thing for me to do because I don't own a car. This is a special day. I had a special place to go outside the city, so I rented a Zip car. I drove out, I did my thing, and then I came back, and on the way back, this is what happened. I was attempting to have a perfectly normal discussion with my passenger and navigate at the same time. And that resulted in me taking a wrong turn. Not like a big wrong turn where I got lost, just a wrong turn where I had to, get kind of frustrated and a little bit flustered and then pull off to the side of the road and then figure out how to turn around and then wait for traffic to, open up so that I could get across the street when I was, and, all those sorts of things that happen when you're driving. And what I realized in that moment was that this was not perfect, but an imperfect and pretty good analogy for my entire worldview. And the first thing I thought was, boy, do I hate taking personal responsibility. You see what happens when you take personal responsibility? As soon as it's my job to navigate, I take a wrong turn. And now I'm wasting all this time and I'm getting frustrated and flustered and all these things. And, as long as I'm disliking personal responsibility, throw in rugged individualism in there as well. Who, if being rugged and individual means that I'm going to take a wrong turn because it's my job to get myself from point A to point B, well, then that's a waste of my time. And as long as we're going down this path, let's go all in and just say freedom, blanket freedom. I'm opposed to that. And so the conversation with the passenger turned from whatever it had been to this. and so this is kind of what I started talking about. I was like, man, this is so, like, it's such a great comparison between personal transportation and public transportation and the philosophical differences between socialism and libertarianism. And I was just like, I love when things are provided for me. And, not that I want to have things given to me for free, but, by paying taxes and subsidizing public transportation and then paying my, my moderate tolls to get on a bus or a train, they get me where I need to go and they never take wrong turns. But not only do they not take wrong turns, I don't even have to pay attention. I could have as in-depth of a conversation as I want with the person next to me, or listen to, political talk shows, or read a book, or send text messages, or just look out the window at the scenery. And I'm still going to get to where I'm going, but I don't have to pay any attention. Whereas when you're a rugged individual exercising your personal responsibility and individual freedom to go out and drive yourself, well, that's what you have to focus on. It's harder to do anything else because you have to focus on getting yourself there and making sure you're getting there safely. You're not getting lost and you're taking the proper route. And if you have to pay a toll, you have to find the cash to pay it while all that stuff. I was like, man, I love not dealing with that stuff. And, I love public parks and public beaches and all of these things that we appreciate that basically come from socialist philosophy. And so, the arguments are made against the argument. They say government wastes money. And I'm not even going to argue against that. But what I will say is that time is money, right? That's kind of a universally accepted idea. And what I will say is I would much rather have the government take some of my money and then waste some part of whatever they took. And as long as they, for the most part, get things done that make my life better and easier. And so what I think is that my personal time is actually pretty valuable. Whether or not I'm doing anything important with it, I would much rather spend my time staring off into the distance than have to fret about, health insurance and making sure that I'm covered and making sure my paperwork's filled out right. Or I would much rather sit on a bus and space out than have to be the one driving and paying attention and making sure I'm not running into anyone or, getting run into or getting lost or any of those sorts of things. And so the idea of disliking freedom comes from that libertarian idea of, when government does things, they take away from your own personal freedom. If just the act of enforcing taxation on their citizens, they're impinging on your personal freedom. And my thought on that is that, I mean, first of all, we've all heard those arguments, between political people of two different stripes of any kind. If it gets heated enough, someone's going to tell the other person to take their ideas and go to another country and live somewhere else and go find yourself an island to implement your crazy ideas and enjoy, but leave the rest of us alone. The most recent time I heard this was from a libertarian saying, hey, all you socialists who want to go, help each other out, that's fine. Just go do it somewhere else and leave the rest of us alone, which is funny because, at least in America, even though we don't realize it and we don't use the word socialism, we have hugely socialist programs that people adore. And, it helps people's quality of life, and they would hate it if those programs disappeared. But we don't call it socialism because that's a bad word. And so it's funny, if one group, if the people who appreciate socialism and the people who appreciate libertarianism, if we had to decide who was impinging on whose turf, it's clearly the socialists who have built society to be what it is. I mean, frankly, socialism built humanity to be what it is. Humans as individuals are incredibly, frail and fragile creatures, and the only way we clawed our way to the top of the food chain is by working together. It's socialism. It's not rugged individualism that got us to the point of being able to build cities and and not have to worry day in and day out about whether or not we were going to be eaten by a wild animal. So, so the libertarians, frankly, they're getting a free ride. They think that they should have personal freedom in every aspect, and yet they take advantage of all of the comforts that socialism has built for them over the last, few thousand years. And so anyways, they had this idea of personal freedom being the pinnacle of freedom. Everyone's free to do whatever they want, and you should be able to, live without the influence of government. And if their utopia were to come to fruition, of course, we would all be incredibly miserable because there would be no structure to society, and it would be awful in a whole lot of ways that I don't think that they foresee properly. But this is their idea of freedom. And so why I say, as I did at the very beginning, why do I dislike freedom? Well, it turns out I just have a slightly different opinion of the definition of freedom as others. My idea of freedom is, freedom is peace of mind. Freedom is the ability to relax. And if I spent all my time being completely free of the constraints of government, but in turn, that meant that I had to provide everything for myself, and I had to do all of the research for myself to figure out what healthcare I was going to get. And I had to do all the research for myself to figure out what food I was going to buy that wasn't tainted, because there's no FDA to give at least a baseline of, comfort in, standards for food. And I had to do all the research on everything there was out there to make sure that I could live my life the way I want to live in a completely free way. Well, I'd spend all of my time making sure I wasn't getting killed by, by some libertarian maniac's, factory that was producing a product the cheap way, made with horribly toxic materials that started killing people, but no one noticed. Until a bunch of people had died. And then, as libertarians would say, he'd go out of business and that'd be great, but a bunch of people would have died in the meantime, and that's why he went out of business. And I would just have to spend my time making sure that I wasn't one of those people who died. And so frankly, to me, I would love to give up my libertarian ideas of freedom and give away some of my money and have some of it wasted in turn for my type of freedom, where I get to relax. I get to take the bus and enjoy the scenery and not worry about whether or not I'm going to get there. And if the bus breaks down, I'm not going to have to worry about being the one to pay to fix it. And my quality of life, my personal quality of life, will go up because I relinquish a certain level of at least the libertarian-minded version of freedom.